Now, the energy emergency is really here, so people are actually talking about it. Carsten Linnemann doesn't know how to sell you the lies anymore. And Friedrich Merz is the most unpopular head of government in the whole world. He's now even more unpopular than AH. You know who I mean, so please don't mention it in the comments, and if you'd like to support the channel, a like and subscription would be appreciated. First, we're starting with a slap in the face that should hit everyone who went to work this morning.
We are the state, and first we have to save, second we have to save, and third we have to save. That is our task in these times, and not to pass the responsibility on to employers in Germany.
Let me briefly list the how they've been saving over the last 4 days. 470 million euros in financial aid for South Africa so that they can overcome this energy emergency. 2.2 billion euros for Sudan so that they can, I don't know, do whatever with it. 180 million for the Gaza Strip, and there too, nobody really knows what will be done with it, but in any case, it's already very, very important that it was spent just in the last 4 days. At the same time, they're still looking for investors for all three of these countries to, well, pull investment capital out of Germany. Yes, this state has to save, but unfortunately it's only saving at your expense, you, the one who goes to work every morning. You, the one who tries to buy your groceries out there. You, the one who tries to somehow make ends meet at the end of the month just to maybe save 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 euros. Yes, that's where the government saves money, but not on foreign projects.
The last tankers that passed through the Strait of Hormuz before the war have arrived here in Europe and Asia in the past few days.
Yes, some gas stations in France are out of fuel, some gas stations in Iran are out of fuel. I keep getting asked, yes, there are still a few tankers that haven't been unloaded yet. Why is that? Well, they're holding back the strategic reserve on these tankers so they can redirect it to another country if necessary, in case you're not allowed to access this fuel. And yes, in several countries in Europe, that's how far things have come in Europe by now. Those who haven't restricted their fuel consumption, like France, for example, are now basically without electricity. Also because of the mass blockades that are happening, to show this government or the governments, no, we're not going along with you anymore. But we'll go into a bit more detail about that this afternoon in our Foreign Affairs segment. You know it, you really like it, that's why we're doing another Foreign Affairs segment at noon today. Among other things, there's a press conference with Zelensky where afterwards the interpreter said, "Oh, Jesus Christ, but I don't want to give too much away yet." It's going to be amazing. The video is almost finished. Let's move on because we actually have an emergency now. Please listen for yourselves.
We have to deal with possible shortages, but even in Europe, the security of supply is only partially guaranteed.
For example, the Merkur writes that Germany is preparing for a gasoline shortage. Now, fuel limits and speed restrictions are being hotly debated. The whole thing was broadcast over the airwaves just yesterday morning. At the same time, NTV is also reporting, these are things I don't really like to show here, that the last tanker from the Gulf is expected and will now be unloaded. After that, it's over. So, the strategic emergency reserve here in Germany is also running out by now. That means either new strategic reserves have to be released now, or something will have to be done, like cutting off gasoline supplies, which of course would have even more impact on the economy. As I already told you at the beginning, just like all countries are being supported again here in Germany, even more companies are now filing for bankruptcy, because they can no longer afford the fuel costs. And let's listen again briefly to the statement from Carsten Linnemann, how he wants to sell us the whole thing. And pay attention to his choice of words and how unsure he is to even tell the reporter about it.
Will it stay that way? If it gets worse, of course we have to talk. That's normal. I think we need to consider other measures. I believe we also need to make it clear that the state simply can't compensate for everything.
Did you notice that? They have no idea what they're supposed to do anymore. On the one hand, they're spending money hand over fist for other countries, but not to keep it here in our economy, and that's going up. Let's take a look at the clever fuel-saving tips from Katharina Reike, who just told us how we can cushion all of this. It's advisable to always keep your tank full according to RP Online. That was the statement from Katharina Reike about how we can, yes, bridge the tank crisis, the emergency with diesel and gasoline. By the way, the word emergency was officially declared in the Bundestag yesterday. You can check it out if you like. It was about the energy emergency, which has now been declared without actually declaring it, because they don't want to unsettle the public even more, especially after losing another 2 percentage points in the polls. Let me ask you honestly, do you still go to the gas station willingly and in good spirits, or does your stomach turn now just thinking about getting gas?
There's growing anger, especially in the business sector, over the proposed €1,000 relief payment companies are expected to make. Many businesses say it's unworkable and unaffordable during this economic crisis. Has it already failed?
Once again, this government stood up at the press conference. I streamed the whole thing for you and said, yes, we will relieve the general public to finally become effective again. We will relieve every citizen here in Germany with 1,000 euros who actually goes to work. And that's how he said it. That's how he presented it. And now, what do I care about the nonsense I said yesterday?
For example, it can't be that employers, and that's most of them, simply don't have the money to pay it out now, can't pay it to their employees, but at the same time the state pays it out to civil servants. That absolutely has to be prevented.
Now I'm really curious, so civil servants are getting paid while small and mid-sized businesses are left to struggle again. However, on Monday just this week, the whole thing was presented to us a bit differently, which is why I really have to say, please explain to us in detail now, who is this actually really relevant for? Because this economy is collapsing and the money is going abroad and not staying in the country. And we're already coordinating a war against Russia. So please, who are these 1,000 euros actually intended for right now?
Chancellor, and I don't want to blame anyone, but the impression was given that every employee would get this. That's nonsense. This is a tool that can be used. For example, a businesswoman from East Westphalia approached me.
What she said was, no. He sat down, the four of them sat down and told us that this 1,000 euro relief package is now coming for everyone, that it covers everything. And everyone can decide for themselves what they do with it, whether they use it to buy gas to keep going to work, or, I don't know, use it to pay for their train ticket. It doesn't matter at all what you do with it. Yeah, just 1,000 euros given as a gift from the employer. That's how it was sold to us. And now, yeah, the Chancellor can't do anything about it. It's not his fault. That's just the same thing again. It's a slap in the face for everyone like me, for example, who got up this morning and went to work to earn this. Yeah. To keep this nonsense running here.
She said she currently has a surge in orders because she works in a part of mechanical engineering that's doing well. And she says, I'm going to use this bonus to pay for overtime on Saturdays when we're now doing extra shifts, tax-free and without social security contributions.
Guys, you really need to get a job in the defense industry. Seriously, do it. You'll probably get the 1,000 euro bonus paid out to you right away there. They can absorb the whole thing. Yeah, make yourselves complicit in the fact that we're supposed to go to war against Russia. That's what I took away from this interview. There's a businesswoman in there who now has people working on Saturdays to handle these peak orders. To then pay out the 1,000 euros, that means people have to work even more. People are being hassled even more just to get 1,000 euros, which they now get tax-free, in quotes, just to create even more bureaucratic hassle. I know this from those corona relief funds that were available back then. I also received them for my company. They were paid out unconditionally. Or what does unconditionally mean? You had to meet a few parameters, like for example, your profits had to drop by 60%. Well, I'm really curious to see how this bureaucratic monster will be received. People are now saying that the state would lose about 1.3 billion euros because of this. And I have to say, if we add all that up, let me think, we still have an estimated surplus of 11.15 billion euros that the state still has in additional revenue, and the tobacco tax, which they now want to increase. Experts are speaking out about this. Well, I would just leave it as it is. Then smuggling will become even more important. But maybe yes, and I'm here myself. Yes, I'm a smoker myself. I don't think it's such a bad idea to raise the tobacco tax a bit more. At least the borders will be controlled then. I'm telling you, that's really how it is. Next clip. But I hope you understood the amount of irony in that.
And we have the very important topic of high labor costs. And I think this issue is central. We need to address it. Germany's non-wage labor costs are among the world's highest, which is why we're no longer successful.
Wait, that's not quite right. We also have the highest energy costs, which come on top of that. We have the highest energy costs by far, and there's nothing else to complain about. The strictest regulations in the whole world. If you want to do anything in Germany, the paperwork for that is so incredibly huge that it drives many startups into bankruptcy after just the first year. I'm speaking from experience. When it comes to that, when it comes to reporting obligations. Yes, so we're not just leading when it comes to labor costs, but also in energy costs and with the strictest regulations that exist anywhere in the world. We should add that too, in fairness. By the way, you've heard about this age verification app. Later in the midday video, I'll explain to you how quickly this thing has already been bypassed and that you really don't have to worry at all. Seriously, my son, even my 14-year-old son, would be able to bypass this age verification app easily, but more on that this afternoon. One more short clip and then I'll give my final statement on why they're just flat broke and why our Chancellor is the most unpopular head of government in the whole world. Well, more unpopular than athlete's foot.
Apparently, there's still no courage to ensure fairness and have the state reimburse the statutory health insurers for treating welfare recipients. The commissions you mention aren't addressing this. The SPD finance minister seems to be slowing things down. Why aren't you supporting that?
So, and I understand every citizen who says that's unfair.
Yes, if you have a wife abroad, she's automatically covered under your health insurance and she stays covered under it. If you're here in Germany and have a wife, she's no longer covered under your health insurance and now she has to get her own if she's supposed to stay home with the children. Yes, that's unfair. Yes, we've had it up to here. Yes, it's just sickening when it comes to welfare recipients. Here in Germany, people just shamelessly hold out their hands and everyone who goes to work who isn't an employer has to pay for all of it. And the employers are no longer able to pay even more. Just a little side note. I'm also sharing from my experience as a self-employed person, since many don't know that. My wife had to pay 230 euros for health insurance. I had to pay 817 euros in the same month. By the way, just a side note. However, the children were insured with my wife and I was only insured for myself. Yes, just insured, and that's where justice begins, doesn't it? For the same benefits, I had to pay so much more even though I only earned about twice as much as my wife. That's equality in Germany. That's why entrepreneurs are no longer able to pay even more. If this system doesn't fall, May 16th, I'll point it out again later. Then yes, Germany will fall. And we are on the verge of running into a civil war here because people simply won't put up with it anymore because more and more businesses are closing. Unless the arms industry takes these people in.